Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Cervena Barva Press Triple Book Launch. And I'm very excited to have three Cervena Barva Press authors celebrate their new books tonight. So far, Cervena Barva Press has published 243 books, and we are 17 this year. So I'm very excited about that, and I hope to have more years of it. I love bringing writing into the world. And we have three wonderful, wonderful writers tonight. And our first reader is David Cappella. This is his book, Gabo, and it's a solitaire's opera. Okay. David Cappella, Professor Emeritus of English and the 2017 and 2018 Poet in Residence at Central Connecticut State University. He has co-authored two widely used poetry textbooks, Teaching the Art, the Moves, and A Surge of Language, Teaching Poetry Day to Day. He won the Bright Hill Press Poetry Chapbook competition in 2006. His poems and essays have appeared in various literary journal anthologies in the US and Europe. His novel, Kindling, has been called a powerful and devastating coming-of-age story. And I give you David.
I'm going to read a series of 100 sonnets that this book is. A few from Act 1, a few from Act 2, and a few from Act 3 as the opera progresses. The book is loosely based on the life of Giacomo Leopardi, the famous Italian poet, and Gabo is an Italian nickname, a derisive name called for humpback, which he was. He was a Gobbo Reale. All right, number 1. Gabo remembers his youth. Let me tell you about suffering, because I was a boy cold without love in a large house, so dark it stifled laughs. I would run to my mother with stones, only to drop them under a grim gaze, so harsh I felt tossed in a freezing bath. Her words, like a cicada's shrill chirp, pierced the close air of long summer afternoons. I remember my brother's folded hands in the coffin, how I kissed one knuckle. I cried, torched inside with processional fires, held by shadowed monks, cowled in their black walk through my town's narrow streets, terrifying my heart forever. 9. Gabo realizes he will only imagine love. Sometimes I think that love is a loom, or maybe the sound of a loom rattled into the voice of a young girl who sings as she works in the summer heat. It is never the girl herself, never anyone particular, only a voice, a smile, a gaze. Ah, Narina, ah, Sylvia. When I greeted you, the greeting exploded into shards of piquant fancy, splinters of desire. Yes, I read Werther, and I walked away pursing my lips into a kiss that I would never give. Did deliquescent dreams scald me? No, they were my real love, solid like gold. "23, again, Gabo despairs. Father pilloried me in my daily life. I could not escape. My hopes soon flitted away from me like a flock of starlings darting from dark thickets as dusk descends. My rheumy eyes, glaucous with fear, saw white. I remained a shackled solitary. My listless body a boulder, numb to me. My vision of myself, complete madman sitting in my study, wide bulging eyes staring into space, mouth agape, barely breathing, unable to laugh or to cry, sunk into the chair of nothingness, sick with life. My imagination shriveled. I kissed my grief, wishing it had real lips. Gabo the poet, 24. All of this, and still inside of me, dawn broke. Its light fanned upward through my heart's clouds. They floated like roseate words, drifting across the landscape of my thinking. The years of hoarding, study, and reading left me a scholarly miser, fervent to caress each word that I discovered. Language became my exchequer, its coins prized words that I gleefully stacked, counted several times over and over, words. Aqua minerale, clear spring water. Thirsting, I swallowed them in huge gulps that livened my blood and freshened my heart. My sanctity glistened, moistened by words. And we're moving along into Act 2. 62. Gabo articulates his relationship with the world of man. Yes, of course, I did want friends. In my mind, surrounded by scholars, thinkers, poets, men whose comportment danced pirouettes with flushed conviction, I skipped my own saltarello, hopping in delight, giddy with camaraderie. But the mind is a cruel chimera, and life beguiles us. I could not confirm, even if I fancied that I could. No, I did not belong to these pretenders. Art and beauty were my solace, shards of the ruined urn of human nature. Nothing matters but these soul throbs. The rest is scum. I do not belong here. '69, Gabo on his father's love. I love my father, I do. Love flows through every vein, through every artery of my warped body. My blood infected with gratitude for my love infected with gratitude for him. I would spill it in un attimo, a moment, so that he could feel peace. I cannot bear the heavy cross of his love, and I will not nail myself to it. No, I told him in a letter that he craved more than any son could give. Still, he pleaded tenderly for my return, downhearted. He wishes intimacy from his son, but childhood shapes how we love, not wishes. What is his pain? I am, a thunderbolt that burns a hole in his heart. Gabo on his brother's death in the Holy Sacrament. Leopardi was supposed to go into the priesthood and he didn't. So there's a pause there after the word father about whether he took the sacrament or not when he was living in Florence. Pious Luigi dead, the sorrow seeped into every organ of my body. My brother's loss weakened me, infecting my tears. I became a walking corpse, ill, in pain, emptiness altered my nerves. Whether I observed the sacrament or whether I lied to Father. Our motives unfold like rituals, and rituals flourish deep within impious sons who reject their honeyed transience. My grief stoked the hatred of Florence. I complained, I withdrew, drowning in self-pity, asked for death. Morbidity embraced me. I stopped writing. 66. Gabo meets a man who could have been a real friend, and they discuss poetry. I met a priest. He cut across my path as abruptly as an autumn leaf caught suddenly by a breeze sailed past my face. We connected, his mind independent and lofty, spiraled in a cloud of sparks around mine. The spirit of his sage words exalted me above my endless pain. We spoke of poetry and of the world, splendid and ordered, that poets sense. Poets fan the flames of their emotions into a heat so intense that the iron of each intimation can be fashioned into words. Poets forge intuitions, how we talked. I never saw him again. Gabo contemplates being Gabo. I live in a world of physiques, of flesh, a world where one's figure reflects the man. Stature and gestures express the measured assurance of grace, strength, and endurance. Society demands il gentle uomo, that's gentlemen, to preen and pose with such an artful ease that good fortune shines from their regal stance. I was not built with confidence and style. Fate mixed weakened mortar to construct me. To all eyes, I am odious, scoffed at, taunted. Even my friends call me Gabo. My hunchback and bulging chest, they rubbed for luck at cards. I'm a rabbit's foot, a buffoon. No one believes me a man. Gabo remarks on the last love of his life. Number 84. I loved her. She remained oblivious. She sat and teased her children as they played at her feet, indifferent to my size. The scent from her bouquet of fresh flowers grabbed her attention more than my presence. I sat silently, studying her face. She never heard my passionate music, the fiery symphony of my heart. I love, and I am not loved in return. Love without love returned, if it prevails, prevails through art, my art. One quiet poem I wrote acquitted me from loving her, released a smile in me at her specter. She was a phantom. Phantoms do not love. 85.
So our next reader is Michael C. Keith, and this is his book, Quiet Geography. And the cover's by Richard Hoffman. Okay. Michael C. Keith is the author or co-author of more than 24 groundbreaking books on electronic media. Beyond that, he is the author of an acclaimed memoir, a young adult novel, and 18 story collections, his latest, Pieces of Bones and Rags. He was nominated for a Pushcart Prize several times, a Pen O.Henry Award, and was a finalist for the National Indie Excellent Award for a short fiction anthology, and a finalist for the International Book Award in the fiction visionary category. And I give you Michael.
Hi, thanks, Gloria. And thanks for all you do for the writing community. In addition to all of your publishing, you're such a valuable asset to all of we scribblers out there. And it's so good that you offer this reading series as well. So I'm going to read from Quiet Geography, a few pieces from that, starting with making a meal for Melissa was uncomplicated. She was very fond of chickpea soup. In fact, it was her favorite food. This was well known among her family and friends who would serve her chickpea soup whenever she came to their house for lunch or supper. Thank you very much for serving me chickpea soup, she would say, with genuine gratitude. As you know, it is my favorite food. This is called from a lecture by the professor of thanatology. It was common in the cold days to lay out the deceased, in the old days, I should say, and they were cold too, to lay out the deceased in the home, often on the kitchen or dining room table. At mealtime, the family of the recently departed would set plates and silverware around the corpse, placing condiments on it if space was tight. This was especially the case if the dead person's body was large. Of course, this would sometimes result in relishes and sauces falling to the floor. This is called easy listening. Regis and Carla Mangiati were loyal listeners of Hartford's beautiful music station, WRCH-FM, Rich Music, as it was called. They were also fans of its deep-throated announcers. Their lush, resonant voices blended perfectly with the tunes the broadcast outlet aired. If they had any criticism at all of the station, it was that it leaned a bit too heavily on the melodies of Mantovani. They would have preferred more Burt Kaempfert songs. It was Mangiati's strong opinion there was more to his playlist than Wonderland by Night, and their favorite spot on the radio dial failed to adequately reflect this. This is called If Necessity Dictates. We're in our stepfather's car going to visit his parents in Bangor. I don't want to be there because I don't like him and dislike his parents even more. I hate being in his custody since our mother died just a year ago. Now he has us do whatever he wants us to do. We have no say. Sometimes I'm scared because I think he wants to do something weird, something sexual. He hasn't exactly tried yet, but I think it's coming soon. I tell my big sister, and she thinks I'm right because he's been real flirty with her lately. We now have a plan to keep him away from us. We will use it if we have to, maybe on the ride home. This is called clearing my throat. This is called Taking Action. The two nuns kept appearing at the events he attended. The ball game, the movie, the outdoor concert. It seemed a weird coincidence, but he shrugged it off until he realized they were staring at him. He was tempted to confront them, but resisted the urge, thinking he was just being paranoid. However, when he found them standing on his lawn, he decided enough was enough. He would have to invite them in. This is called Mom on what would be her 97th. Less and less is said of her absence. No cake, no presents, no birthday song. This is called What's Your Sequence? My wife asks, what routine do you use when you wash your body in the shower? I'm puzzled by her question and ask what she means. Well, what part of your body do you wash first and what do you wash next? What's the last thing you wash? I think about it and answer, well, my hair. Then I work my way down, I say. Down to where? She inquires, straight-faced. My toes, I mutter, growing irritated by her odd line of questioning. You're very weird, I blurt at her. If I'm weird, you're dirty, she replies, adding, do you know how many parts of your body you miss? This is called knowing his limit. His desire for expensive clothes, automobiles, and electronic gadgets seemed inexhaustible. He had emptied his once substantial bank account and had maxed out his credit cards to buy things. Then he took to borrowing money from relatives and friends, but could not pay them back. It didn't matter that no one would associate him any longer because now he had everything he ever wanted. This is called a warm welcome. Heloise's husband brought home a friend from his long ago past. It was obvious he'd experienced hard times. Despite his shaggy look, he was very gentlemanly, even courtly, and she was taken with him almost immediately. When her husband said he needed to pick up something at the store, she said he should leave his friend behind so they could get better acquainted. He thought that was a great idea. When he left on his errand, Heloise offered to give his friend a bath. This is called phenomenon. Aidan could hear conversation while he was urinating. Where it came from perplexed him because he was alone in his house. After he'd emptied his bladder, he looked out of the bathroom window and saw no one or nothing. Relieving himself a few hours later, he heard voices again. This time, when he finished, he did a thorough sweep of his house and the ground surrounding it. Again, he encountered no one. It was during his 3 a.m. toilet run he discovered the source of the voices. How peculiar, he mused, that the contact of his urine with the commode porcelain would generate human discourse. This is called Immaculate Conception 2. She grew flowers from her vagina at a time when other girls were experiencing their first periods. A spray of fairy foxgloves and forget-me-nots had sprung from her lap. She believed she was having her first menstruation, since no one had told her what to expect. The following month, to her joy and further puzzlement, a lovely baby's breath appeared. This is called The Beneficent Natural World. A high squeal caught my attention, and I went to check it out. My wife was in the side yard watering her flower bed when I caught sight of her. She was being viciously attacked by a mammoth Andean condor, the apparent source of the sound. It's only nature, and you don't interfere with nature, I told myself, and went back into the house. This is called, and was that a good thing? They'd been without water for 2 days after their car broke down on a secondary road in the desert. Finally, they came upon a small basin at the base of a ridge. Its rusty colored water caused them to hesitate, but their deep thirst quickly eclipsed their concern, and they took a tentative sip. It tastes like mushrooms, noted one of the men. Yes, with a touch of oregano and dill, observed the other. And this is called sky fire. It was a new environmental phenomenon, clouds bursting into flames. Those who most enjoyed the spectacle wore fire retardant suits. Thank you.
David, Cappella, since you're back, would you please finish your reading? And we'll just be a little back and forth tonight. So unmute yourself.
I'm sorry, I apologize to everyone. I lost complete use of the internet. So I don't know what happened. Okay. I did 82. Did you hear 82? Gabo contemplates being Gabo. Gabo remarks on the love of his life. Number 84. I loved her. She remained oblivious. She sat and teased her children as they played at her feet, indifferent to my size. The scent from the bouquets of fresh flowers grabbed her attention more than my presence. I sat silently studying her face. She never heard my passionate music, the fiery symphony of my heart. I love, and I am not loved in return. Love without love returned, if it prevails through art, my art. One quiet poem I wrote acquitted me from loving her, released a smile in me at her specter. She was a phantom. Phantoms do not love. 85. Gabo recalls clouds and longing. As a child, I ran after the shadows of clouds and they slid over the foothills, chasing their floating roll over hedges. They seemed blankets blackening the ground. I pretended I might catch one. My foot, a cat's paw, would snag the grassy fur. I wonder if, even then, the urge to grasp at shadows was a rehearsal for my futile pursuit of love. My hope for love has always been naive, I know. My longings, blowy as cumulus, billowed high into the afternoon sky. Their shapes terrified me. Their edges ablaze blistered my heart. Notions lit by the void. Okay, the end of the Act 3, Gabo Leopardi's living in Naples, and he ends up dying in the city. This is when he first explores the city. Remember, he's a dwarf and a hunchback. Gabo, 89. Gabo, alone, experiences the streets of Napoli. Ah, the lively gestures of Napoli. How the Saturnalia in its streets reeks of eels, watermelon, horse droppings. The endless sordid revelry of shouts and screams, shoving and squirming a path past prelates and prostitutes, past monks and martyrs, past dizzying displays of crisp pastry, past vats of spaghetti. One day I felt strong enough to allow my body to be pushed into this current. Amid the throng that carried me, I spied a friend. Twice I tried to move toward him. Twice I failed to get close. I mouthed a greeting as I floated away. He vanished. Gabo in the writer's kit. Well, let me do this one. Gabo, this is 94 because we're nearing the end. Gabo oscillates between the fear of death and the yearning for it. I felt it. The weight of its torment threatened my day like the nightmare flows from Vesuvius threatened those who farmed its slopes. This molten menace, so frightful to me, kept me looking back over my shoulder, uneasy, afraid, just as these tenants often sneak looks back at the peak, fearing sudden fracture. Death, the final cataclysmic rupture. But then those placid afternoons when I sat on the porch above the city, peered over the vineyards, the rows of fruit trees, beyond the azure bay, celestial, released my fear of death. Thank you. Thank you for letting me finish.
Thank you, David. And I'm so glad you got back on and could finish. Of course, I would do that. And I'm really glad we got to hear more of it. And Michael, your stuff cracks me up. And I really love it. And another person that cracks me up, some of his work is our next reader, Doug Mathewson. And let me show you his new book. And it's called Nomad Moon. And Doug writes short and even shorter fiction. His work has appeared here and there, now and then, due to the kindness and forgiving nature of numerous editors to whom he is most sincerely grateful. He is editor of Blinking and sweeps up and does odd chores for the Mambo Academy of Kitty Wang. And I give you Doug.
Good evening. Am I live?
You're live.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. Gloria, thank you so much, Glo, for all you do, not just for me, but for everyone in this community. And thanks, of course, to Cervena Barva Press and everyone there. Thanks on this book to my partner in Blinking, Sally Reno, who did the editing work. Thank you, as you know, as Glo said, to everyone who originally published these 24 stories, which are from about 10, 12 years ago. And, thanks to my wife, Gemma, whose name you see on the screen since I'm using her computer. And also thank you to her for our 48 years together, come Halloween. This is a fun book. It has love, it has loss, it has laughter, it has incomprehensible circumstance. So let's see if we can have a little fun with this. The first one, I believe our poet friends here can relate to. You folks often seem to refer to the muse. So let's see if we can evoke our friend the muse through this first one. The muse. I saw the muse last night in the 24-hour corner store, and she looked like shit. She was buying cigarettes and Slim Jims, and I was getting cat food in a Slurpee. Oh, the poor thing. She had an old bathrobe over her house coat, a bomber hat with ear flaps, and men's shoes. Oh, God. The kid behind the counter, he told her that she couldn't smoke in the store. And I said something. I said, don't say that, or leave her the fuck alone, or she's all right, or something. I don't know, but I said something. She ground it out on the linoleum and paid. On her way out, she stopped and touched my arm and whispered, I haven't forgotten you, Bunny. So perhaps that sets the tone for, well, perhaps for the book, if not for the evening, This is something else. It's called Family Album. Like most things I write, it's true. Well, in this case, it's true of my birth family. It's true, except for the parts that I made up. And those parts you have to decide for yourself. Family album. We never had a family album. It just wasn't our style. No photos of picnics or birthdays. No graduations, Easter bonnets, or Christmas mornings. We had a family envelope. That's how we were, I guess. Our envelope was tattered and old and filled mostly with outdated papers and useless receipts. Hardly any pictures or clippings at all. When Mom died and the newspaper needed a photo for her obituary, we cut their wedding picture in half. When Dad passed, 2 years later, we couldn't find his half. We looked, we couldn't find it. The best we could do was his driver's license. Too bad, really, that it had suspended DWI stamped across his face. Too bad. And now, wouldn't you know it? Now the darn dog's gone missing and we don't have one picture of that old mutt. We're going to have to use a picture of somebody else's dog for the missing posters. You haven't seen them, have you? You haven't seen him. He's a good dog if you see him. Okay. This is something a little longer. But it's okay. I'll take care of everybody. We'll all be okay. We'll all come out the other side, in one piece. Nobody's going to get hurt or anything bad happen. It's called Elvie, E-L-V-I-E, Elvie. Well, I'd have to say, it was back when we were trying to be rodeo stars. Say the second summer of the 3. And if you wasn't getting drunk every night and raising hell, well, then you'd be looking for something else to do. So I started going to these services they got in the back of an old storage trailer. This guy, Reverend Bob or Pastor Joe or, whatever the Jimmy Cakes he was calling himself back then, would talk about leading a good life, a Christian life, just a life of doing right by others. The golden rule and all of that, and not that campfire Jesus shit that my daddy always warned me against, but being honest, owning up to how you carry yourself in this life. So Bob, he'd talk some and pray some and maybe try to get a little old time hymn going. Remember this one time, well, I remember more than one time, somebody started talking about this reincarnation business. How it was different than the resurrection of our Lord, and a different thing too from all them saved folks rising up in the final days. Said you'd come back, but not as you was, not even close. Maybe as somebody else, or even an animal, depending. Well, there were a fair share of jokes about who'd be what, till someone, I don't recall who, took offense. Now, some of the boys, like the idea of a second chance at things. And then this old hand pointed out to us that being runaway farm boys and rodeo trash and day labor, we'd all do the same stupid shit all over again. So at these trailer prayer meetings, she'd be helping out. She was just a kid back then, and it would have been late for her. I remember over her pajamas, she wore an apron with two Dutch girls holding watering cans. Her mother had some sympathy with Reverend Bobby, so she and her girl, just the two of them, they'd ladle out pink lemonade while the good Reverend would call for a blessing from above. That lemonade hit the spot for sure. Being hot in the trailer and all. But yeah, it was back all them years back, the first time that I saw my Elvie. Thanks. Glo was kind enough to mention Blank Ink, which is where I spent a considerable amount of my time and efforts. And I'm the editor there. And it's a journal of contemporary 50-word fiction. We publish in print only. We publish quarterly. And we've been doing that now for 13 years. People will say, oh, gee, I have trouble writing short. It's hard for me to write anything short. I got the other problem. I can't write anything long. I get up around 800-900 pages. I get dizzy. I got to go lie down. It's just too high up in the air for me. So here's a 50-word story. Oh, and 50 words, some people insist on it has to be exactly 50, or does the title count in the 50? It doesn't really matter much to me. It should be around 50 and should be good. I'm more concerned about, what the story does, what it says, what does it leave you with? So anyway, here's a little 50-word story. It's called Karaoke. Your sister and her friends were so drunk and loud that we were all told to leave the karaoke bar. Adamantly, you insisted on doing one song before we left. You sang "What's New, Pussycat" from the small and shabby stage. You were terrible, and I never loved you more. So there's a 50-word story. It's got a beginning, it's got a middle, it's got an end. Okay, this, believe it or not, I don't ask me why, but I swear it's true. This is by popular request. A couple people I invited would say, oh yeah, but make sure you read this one. And I don't know if it's relatable and that's what makes it, but it's only relatable to a certain age group. I don't know, but it's by request. It's called Senior Momentum. So, deal with my undergarments and pull up my pants. Tuck in my shirt tails and do the button. Fiddle with my belt, and then I'm done. That's enough. I've lost interest. The zipper can be for another day. I swear, by request. All righty, this is an old story, but I'm going to close out with it. And once again, my many thanks to everyone who supports the arts, large or small, here or there. And thanks to everybody who ever published any of these stories along the way over the years. This is called Crossing the Hudson. After her father died, I'd take the pickup to Westchester every Sunday, bring her a carton of Camels. Only family was allowed in the locked wards, but the staff still thought we were married. Holding hands in the day room, we'd talk and laugh for hours. When it came time to go, we'd kiss each other's eyes. It was our little custom. Coming home, I'd usually pull over to think, have a smoke, and watch the Hudson for a while. Funny how things work out. Funny, you know. She'll still be locked in the mental hospital, and I'll still be in love. I want to thank you all. Thank you very sincerely. Support the arts, support Gloria and her press, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Doug. The nice thing about tonight is all three of you, your voices came alive. What you read came alive for me because, you know, as an editor and publisher, you know, you work closely with the book and the author. And then usually when it comes out, I have to read it a zillion times because I love the work so much. So hearing your voice to all of it is really special. So thank you. And can we give them another round of applause?